Alright, 3-4 right was identified. We'll start our clock. Start the first officers. Bring the engines. Oh. Almost forgot. Kill the center fuel pumps. Alright. Engines up to 40%. Stable. Takeoff power. Knots. Positive brake, gear up. Start bringing the flaps up. And a right turn out. Give it to the autopilot. Your airplane. Here comes our transition altitude. And we can turn off all these lights. And at Swan, the next waypoint is where we will start our way down into Minney. So we'll launch into how I got here. My aviation background really starts with my grandpa. My grandpa on my dad's side, he did a lot of stuff. He was a firefighter. I think he worked at a couple manufacturing plants. But for a little bit, he worked at the Milwaukee airport in Wisconsin for Northwest Airlines. This is back in the days of like Lockheed Constellations, prop liners. So I'm not even entirely sure what exactly he did there. I'd have to ask my dad again. I'm sure he's told me once. But that is the first instance I know of any of my family being in aviation. I guess my middle name is Myron. I'm named after my grandma's brother on my mom's side, who was a ball turret gunner on a B-17. And turret gunners were known for flying without their parachute because it was a pretty tight fit in the ball to begin with, and if you had a parachute on, it was almost impossible to move in there. So a lot of the turret gunners would fly without a parachute. His airplane actually got shot down over Germany, and he went down with the airplane. So that's where I get my middle name from. But yeah, my grandpa worked for Northwest, and then my dad started working for Continental Airlines back in 1987. He started for them in Casper, Wyoming. And right around then is kind of when the whole idea of express carriers was kind of starting to catch on. They existed to a degree. Great Lakes was out there, the original Great Lakes. Airlines had commuter airplanes, they had ATRs, they had Beech 1900s, things like that. My dad even worked a couple Convairs, which were on their way out, but those were some pretty dated airplanes for that time. And a lot of carriers flew mainline stuff, just about everywhere. So right about the time he started was when regional jets and things like that were starting to catch on. So Continental pulled their hub out of Denver, and to stay with Continental, my dad moved to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I was 3 when we moved from here to there, and we weren't there real long. My dad's originally from Wisconsin. We lived pretty close to where he grew up. He grew up in Elkhart Lake, which was where my grandparents lived. And that's kind of a cool little town. It's a resort town. There's a lake that kind of wealthy people will come out for the weekend and just spend the weekend at their house on the lake. And there's a racetrack, Road America. It's kind of a European road racing style course. They race motorcycles there, Indy cars, Le Mans type stuff, Porsches, Mercedes, things like that. So you'll see race cars driving around downtown. That's kind of cool. But anyway, we moved there, and we lived there until I was 6. So it was pretty short. My dad worked for Continental, and Continental and America West had some weird, I don't know how it worked, but they worked each other's flights. So my dad actually ended up building a couple of years of America West seniority that actually ended up counting against his Continental time. So his hire date, according to Continental then, was 1989. So he went from 87 to 89, which was a little annoying, I guess, but then, to stay with Continental, we moved from there to Cleveland, Ohio. And it was he was either going to go to Cleveland or Austin, Texas. It was whichever one called first. And we ended up going to Cleveland. So, moved to Cleveland. I went to first grade there, and we ended up being there all the way up until 3 years of college for me. So that was where he spent the majority of his time with the airlines. And we did quite a bit of flying. It's weird when you have free flights that you can use, how easy it is to just take a weekend trip. We would take weekend trips fairly often. We would go up to Wisconsin for a weekend and just come back. A couple times we had to miss a day of school, but it was way easier to make it back out to Wyoming. Just being able to hop on a flight. We usually went Cleveland, Houston, Denver, Casper, or for a while we went through Salt Lake and flew on SkyWest from there into Casper on the Brazilias. I don't know why, but I really like turboprops. I like the sound. I enjoy flying on them, but they're kind of becoming they're a dying breed in the airline industry. My dad's sister actually ended up marrying a rancher from out here in Wyoming, and he was in the Air National Guard and owned his own airplane. He had a little tri-pacer and then moved up to a 182, and I've flown with him quite a few times. That's the first place I actually got to hop in a cockpit and fly an airplane. But yeah, and then my personal aviation background, I started working at an airport when I moved from Ohio. I moved from Ohio to North Dakota and just lived up there for a year. But my uncle on my mom's side had been working at the airport in Grand Forks, and I got hired on there at the FBO, the private terminal there in Grand Forks. So I worked there for pretty much the whole time I lived up there, that whole year, and I worked around the small planes, and then we ground handled Allegiant, so I got some airline experience with that too. And it was cold. Man, it was cold. I was there for the fifth coldest December on record. It was not fun. Oh, let's pause there for a second and program our arrival. Let's get the weather in Minney quick.
Kilo Mike Sierra Papa Airport information Mike 0053 Zulu weather wind 120 at 10 visibility 10 sky condition temperature 23 dew point 14 altimeter 3002 advise on initial contact with information Mike Kilo Mike Sierra Papa Airport information Mike 0053.
Okay, we're gonna do the Torgy arrival, Torgy 3. Wind 120, that's right down the pipe for the 12s. That's kind of funny. There's an approach fix called UFTA. Scandinavian people will get a laugh out of that. And we'll land on 12 right. And we'll execute that. So that's set. And let's check for discos. There's a disco. Alright. So, I worked in Grand Forks for a year and froze my face off. And then my brother had come out to Wyoming for college, and he started working at the FBO here in Casper. So they kind of got to a point where they needed more help, and they basically recruited me to come up there and work with those guys. So I moved from North Dakota out to Wyoming, and I had always kind of wanted to come back here anyway. I like Wyoming. So I moved out here and worked for the FBO out here, and that was, I really enjoyed that. I got to meet some cool people. Learned quite a bit while I worked out here, just about a lot of different aircraft types. I learned quite a bit in North Dakota too, but we didn't get a whole lot of traffic there. It was definitely an uptick in traffic once I moved out here to Casper, and I learned a lot about aircraft types, airport codes, just working the ramp in general, and met some cool people there. And then the thing about it though was I moved up to working for a big corporation. And if you know big corporations, they're usually pretty big on doing stuff by the book, and there's changes that come about, and so I just kind of got burnt out of it after a while. It was just, it seemed like every time you turned around, the rule book was changing, and I just needed a change. So I moved from there to SkyWest Airlines, which is where I'm at now. And I'm really enjoying that so far. It's cool to be able to work the same ramp my dad started on back in the 80s and be in the same terminal. And I really like the people that I work with. So it's been a good change, and I've learned even more about aviation, and gotten to know some airline pilots, so it's been good. So that's my background in aviation. Ding the cabin, tell them to get off their laptops and that type of thing. So we're on our way down, speed's coming back, coming down for 10,000 in a minute once the speed rolls back. We'll get ready to drop a notch of flaps. So we're looking pretty good. Here's a good spot to set the auto brake, and we'll arm the speed brake. We'll drop our flaps. Alright, rolling out on our final approach here. Gears coming down. We'll take the airplane from the autopilot in a second. Let's turn all our landing lights on. And let's take the airplane. This should be nice and easy with the wind coming straight down the runway. shallow out the descent just a little bit. I can't really make out the glide slope yet, but we look pretty good. Little high, that's fine, we can fix that. And we're down. Reversers. Decel. 60 knots. Clear the auto brakes. Start taking the flaps in. Get rid of the spoilers. And we'll try to make this next left up here. Oh yeah, we got it. Come to a stop before we take it into the gate and clean the airplane up. over the threshold, but we had some speed to bleed off anyway, so it worked out. And we'll just park. We'll park at one of these gates over here. I'm not as familiar with Minneapolis. I'm not sure. Which gates are mainline and which gates are express stuff. This one here looks good. Alright, let's set the parking brake. APU spooling up. Forgot to start it early again. I need to add that to my checklist. Seatbelt sign can come off. Make our arrival announcement. And we'll kill the engine on the jet bridge side. There, the APU is available. And we'll kill our other engine. Alright. Welcome to Minneapolis, St. Paul. Thanks for riding along. And we will do it again sometime. Catch you guys later. See ya.